Hey everybody, this is Mrs. James. Thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to get to do some science together and I'm really excited. We're going to be reviewing physical and chemical changes, and then we're going to be doing a science experiment together. I hope that you might even be able to try this science experiment at your homes. You'll have to let me know if you do. All right, let's get started. So we're going to review two key vocabulary terms. Now, if you've had Mrs. James as a teacher, you know that I love hand motions because hand motions help me remember what different things are. So a physical change is a change in the way matter looks. For example, if I have this piece of paper, if I rip it, is it still paper? Yeah, it's still paper. It just changes the way it looks. I also have some aluminum foil. I could take this aluminum foil and crumple it up to make a ball. Is this a physical change or a chemical change? Right, it's a physical change. It just changes the way the foil looks. Now, let's learn about chemical changes. Do you guys remember the motion for chemical change? Yeah, so when we do chemical change, we're talking about a change that causes different kinds of matter to form. For example, if I have an egg and I take an egg and I crack it on a hot skillet in the morning for my breakfast, it's going to change that egg into a different type of matter. It's going to change a different substance to form. Raise your hand if you've ever had a bike or ever been on a bike. I love going on bikes. But if you leave your bike outside in the rain for too long, maybe for 2 or 3 weeks or a whole summer, and it's just sitting there in the rain, do you guys know what can form on the bike? Yeah, if you look at this picture here, you see that rust will actually form on the bike. The rust on that bike is causing a chemical change to that bike. So we have physical change and we have a physical change and a chemical change. All right, so I want you to pause the video. I want you to think, in your house, where do you see physical changes and chemical changes? You can pause the video. You can leave the room if you need to. Maybe you need to go into the kitchen to open your fridge to see what might be in there. What can you change physically? And then what would you have to do to make a chemical change? If you have a family member that you can tell the physical change or chemical change, go ahead and do that. Make sure you hurry back though so that we can get to our science experiment. Okay, so we're going to make a prediction. I have some materials here. My first material is flour. We're going to make a prediction. How do flour and baking soda change when each is mixed with vinegar? Okay? How do flour and baking soda change when each is mixed with vinegar? I want you to think about physical and chemical changes. Do you think when we mix them, are they going to look the same or are they going to look different, and why? Go ahead and pause the video. You can write your prediction down if you have paper and pencil with you. If not, go find a family member and you can tell them, what is your prediction? Here are the materials we will need for our experiment today. I've already showed you the flour, baking soda, and white vinegar. If you choose to do this experiment at home, you will also need 2 balloons and 2 empty water bottles. Now, I didn't have any water bottles, so I just used Gatorade bottles, but just make sure that it's totally empty of the liquid. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. As we experiment, as you're watching, I want you to think about these 3 things. Number 1, what do you notice happened when the flour and vinegar were combined? Number 2, what do you notice happened when the baking soda and vinegar were combined? And number 3, which example showed a chemical change and why? So I want you to think about those 3 things as we are experimenting. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna start first with the flour and white vinegar. Now I have a bottle, and I'm going to And I've put white vinegar at the bottom. Inside my balloon, I put flour inside the balloon. I stretch the balloon and put it over. I want you to think, what's going to happen when Mrs. James lifts the balloon and puts it over the bottle? Right, the gravity is going to allow the flour to fall into the bottle. I want you to notice what happens when I lift the balloon up. Okay. What do you notice is happening? You can pause the video, you can write down some observations that you see. What do you notice is happening with the water and the flour? Oh, not the water, silly Mrs. James. With the baking soda, silly Mrs. James. This is the flour and white vinegar. See, even teachers make mistakes. That's okay. All right, now we're getting ready to do baking soda and white vinegar. So I have another bottle. At the bottom, I have white vinegar. And in this balloon, I have my baking soda. Now, when I lift the balloon up, I want you to think, what do I see? What do I notice is happening? Okay, here we go. Whoa! Was it the same as this one? Interesting. What do you notice is happening? Look inside and look on top of the balloon. Interesting. Which example do you think showed a chemical change? The flour in white vinegar or the baking soda in white vinegar? Interesting. Thanks for doing this experiment with me today. Lastly, I want you to respond now to these two questions. Down below in the comment section, this is going to be your exit ticket. Number 1, how could you tell that a chemical reaction occurred between the vinegar and the baking soda? How did you know? Number 2, how could you tell there was no chemical reaction between the flour and the vinegar? I'm really excited to see your comments down below in the section. I can't wait to see what you guys learned and if you enjoyed the experiment. Also, please let me know. Please be sure to comment if you tried this experiment at home. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Thanks for learning with me today.